So guys, what if Naruto was fate of two societies in Pokemon universe and Misty as slave movie? Shinobi and hunters, or sometimes trainers, were strong, wise, and resourceful in their own ways, however, the powers they wield were completely different because of the differences, clashes tended to occur between them. At first, the hunters were at a disadvantage because their power depended on their Pokemon, more specifically, it depended on the bond between them and their Pokemon, allowing them to tap into the Pokemon's abilities and moves. If they were not careful, their hearts can corrupt the bond and taint their own Pokemon with their heart's darkness, turning them into shadow Pokemon. They were better known as creatures of destruction, because of their corrupted nature, they could turn against their own owners. Those forces, Shinobi and Hunter, clashed multiple times a long time ago. Because of the Hunters' disadvantages, it seemed that Shinobi would win and take over the regions that the Hunters had taken refuge in. However, even the tiniest ray of hope in their hearts was enough to make them look for a change. In time, the Hunters' determination, resourcefulness, and creativity led them to the tools that would be the key for them to hold their own against Shinobi's jutsus and plethora of melee weaponry. That power was in the form of Pokemon gems, powering up their weapons, allowing them to perform Pokemon moves to an extent, even if their Pokemon was not able to battle, be it in the form of gems, crystal or crushed dust, the last which many call powder. It can even be incorporated into ordinary weapons for more lethality. For some select few hunters, they even unlocked a form of spiritual powers called aura. No one knew where they originated from. Some say it was achieved from mixing a chakra from a shinobi and the bond that only a hunter can access. Others say it was simply another level beyond the power that can draw from the bond with Pokemon. Regardless, with the gems and newly unlocked powers, it helped beat back shinobi. They even helped fight back against some of the stray shadow Pokemon. With nature's magic in hand, hunters managed to drive the shinobi forces back to the countries. Now that they do not have to worry about opposing forces coming back for them, the regions developed in terms of power, civilization, and most importantly, life. Moreover, they could just focus on the shadow Pokemon that still wander the regions. At one point, the first Hokage and the fifth princess, Aka military princess, made an agreement after a fight went to a stalemate. Hunters and shinobi will leave each other alone, as both sides had their own problems to deal with, and fighting each other would simply leave them open for other adversaries. However, before they parted ways, the fifth princess gave a single item. A walkie-talkie. She had seen a worthy opponent in him and told him to contact her if he ever wanted to battle again. From then on, hunters and shinobi left each other to their own devices, content with ignoring the other. Unity was out of the question because of their differing culture and refusal to understand the other side. Nevertheless, even that pretense of "you leave me alone, I leave you alone" would eventually falter and shatter. When that happened, darkness would wait and return to consume them all once both sides are worn down. Everyone could prepare their powers, build defenses to this pseudo-free world, but may all take heed, there would be no victory that could be achieved alone. Perhaps unity was in the simpler things that people had long abandoned in pursuit of their goals, things that would require a simple, all-loving and objective soul, or maybe two of them. The fate of two societies and how things would go would depend on the two kings of each side. And a single action from an old man will change things forever. The lone figure walked along Route 1. He had black, neck-length, and combed-down hair where some tips stuck out, and brown eyes. His skin was cream-colored, and he stood at around 186 meters tall with a broad-shouldered and lean frame. He was currently dressed in a black t-shirt with a long-sleeved green jacket and black pants at the right sleeve of his shirt. There was a Ranger green bishop printed on it. The platinum rapier was sheathed to his side, along with a watch-like device and mega glove on his left hand. It had been a long time since a sure-red Satoshi Ketchum, better known as Ash Ketchum, visited Pallet Town. Too long, walking through the route leading to that quiet town. He could almost believe that he had never really left Pallet Town at all, a place he had called home, as opposed to his birth city. The world has gone to shit, Ash thought bitterly, hands in his pockets. On his shoulder was what looked like short chubby rodent with yellow fur with two horizontal brown stripes on its back. It had a small mouth, long pointed ears with black tips, and brown eyes. Each cheek was a red circle. And it had short forearms with 5 fingers on each paw, and its feet each have 3 toes. At the base of its lightning bolt-shaped tail was a patch of brown fur. Walking alongside him was a bipedal canine-like creature, with fur that was predominantly blue and black. It possessed a short round spike on the back of each forepaw, in addition to a third on its chest. It had red eyes, a long snout and ears, with cream-colored fur on its torso, and blue fur on its thighs that resembled shorts. It had a medium-length tail of the same blue color as well. It also had 4 black appendages that hang down from its head. They stayed as silent as their owner, knowing their trainer was lost in thought. They reached a small house, where Ash saw a somewhat young woman watering the plants. She was a slender woman with fair skin and brown eyes. She also had smooth brown hair that she kept in a ponytail with a green scrunchie. "Mum," Ash greeted, forcing a smile. Blinking, Delia paused her watering and looked for the speaker. Ah, Ash, reaching up, she patted at her messy brown hair nervously. My apologies that I was late, I couldn't get away from my duties, Ash smiled tiredly at her. Don't worry, Delia beamed, giving him a big hug. I'm happy that you even managed to find the time to come, after becoming the champion, Ash shrugged and said, anything for you, Mum, you said there was an emergency, so I came, I couldn't just leave my mum behind after everything, could I? She pulled a crumpled tissue from her pink cardigan and began dabbing at her eyes. I'm so proud of you, you worked so hard. We worked so hard, Ash corrected her. He hugged her back tightly. I couldn't have done it without you. Delia squeezed him tight and sniffling into his shoulder, then she pulled back, smoothing the lapels of his jacket. You are going to be a great hunter, she smiled through her tears. Someday, I hope you take down your father. Shall we get inside? Ash nodded as they entered the house. While waiting for his mother to prepare tea, he turned on the television. Every single region has initiated a complete shutdown of Pokémon contests and Pokémon showcases after a group of powerful shadow Pokémon demolished at least. Ash changed the channel, his eyes were listless. Even the champions have a hard time containing these newly formed shadow Pokémon. Ash gritted his teeth, clutching to the remote that Pikachu thought it would break. He changed the channel once more. The appearance of the shadow Pokémon is suspected to be connected to. Ash flicked it off, suppressing the urge to throw the remote into the television. Pikachu and Lucario exchanged worried looks at this. He's ready, dear, Delia said. Ash poured a cup and drank from it. Delia then tried to make small talk at Ash's smoldering look. Have you heard from us? She cut herself off when she saw that at the first syllable of his name, Ash's face darkened even further. That person left when Ash were young, almost too young to remember. Almost. Ash still remembered the back of the older boy as he ran off, essentially abandoning them. At that memory, the cup handle shattered in his grip. Sorry, Ash, I know he was a sore spot for you. He left both of us behind. No note, no visit, no nothing for 13 years and counting, Ash replied, looking in disgust at the family photo that depicted 4 people. In particular, he glared at the 2 that wasn't himself or his mother. Luckily, he wasn't bleeding and he promptly took a rag to clean up. I know, Ash, I know, Delia soothed him, and Ash took a deep breath to calm down, but maybe he has his reasons. We had to escape from your father, remember? Whatever, Mum, Ash was brusque. He then went straight to the point. Anyway, why did you call me here? As if on cue, a baby whimper was heard. Delia got up and beckoned to Ash. He frowned as he followed her to one of the smaller rooms, where a crib was there. In the middle of the crib lay a baby with blonde hair, blue eyes and whisker marks on his cheeks. Mum, what happened? Ash asked carefully, looking at the infant, who didn't seem to be bothered by being in a strange room. As a matter of fact, he was gurgling happily. Pikachu's eyes sparkled at the baby. Delia replied, well, from what Olympia told me. Olympia had always prided herself when it came to telling the future, just like how she predicted an imminent crisis will sweep the Kalos region with Ash in the middle. She had never been wrong. Thanks to her strong psychic powers, she had even been aware of the existence of shinobi, long faded into tales of legend among hunters. Little did she know, someone that was part of those shinobi would approach her for her help. It was via that single item the 5th princess had left behind for the shinobi, a function that sends telecommunication signals to a random powerful psychic. Upon receiving the message in her head, she thought it was another psychic. However, the man sounded too old to be any of the well-known psychics. With the help of her team of apprentices, she managed to locate the building the man wanted her to meet him in. It took a lot for her to even locate the exact spot she was to teleport in. As she stood in front of the gates, she was immediately reminded of the time Team Flare attacked Kalos, only the devastation was much worse. Olympia wondered what kind of attack it was as she walked into the village, seeing the streets nearly empty, demolished buildings, and splatters of blood. Some bodies were still there, either crushed or impaled. The dark sky seemed to be reflecting the darkest hour. Olympia closed her eyes in sympathy for those who had lost. As she hurried towards that tall, red building she saw, it wasn't even damaged in the devastation. In fact, it was unscathed. She strode gracefully in, as no one was even on duty at this point. Sarutobi Hiruzen was in the office, absent-mindedly smoking a pipe. He lamented the loss of the current Hokage, and the state Konoha was in as well. He had a look of anger, tiredness and disappointment on his face as he looked out the window at the moon. The emotions he felt was not only for the people of the village, but also for himself for his inability to protect Minato or Kushina. They had left a few hours old baby behind, and he had no guardians to take him in. The Hokage was almost sure that if Naruto was to remain here, he would face discrimination if word ever got out that he had the 9-tailed fox sealed in him. Not being able to stomach the thought of this, the Hokage made a decision. The only decision the Hokage knew that could help Naruto not just live the childhood he deserved, but to be a powerful fighter. He remembered that the first Hokage had left something behind that could connect him to a distant region where perhaps Naruto would at least be treated decently because of their rumored powers to summon creatures that had mystical powers. Sarutobi moved to a vault that was hidden behind a portrait to reveal a walkie-talkie. He sent a message out with that device. It glowed, so he assumed it must have done something. Sadly, there was no immediately response, but he decided to wait. And worth a wait it was. He sensed someone coming via chakra. He turned to see an Anbu member in a boar mask. "Report, boar," he said wearily. "Hokage-sama, someone claimed that you called her," the Anbu announced. The third turned around with surprise as he knew the communication attempt worked. "Tell her to come in, please." "As you wish," the Anbu said before disappearing in a cloud of smoke. A few seconds later, Kalo's psychic specialist floated into the office. Hiruzen couldn't help but be awed at the power that woman was emitting. "Greetings, my name is Olympia, I received your message," Olympia greeted mysteriously and bowed. "Hello, Olympia, my name is Sarutobi Hiruzen, the leader of this village, it's a pleasure to meet you." Hiruzen bowed back to her. "I hope it wasn't difficult for you to find this place." "I think that matters very little, considering the wreckage outside." Olympia's tone was neutral. "You are in need of help regarding a path to be decided." "Yes," although Sarutobi had no idea what Olympia meant, "I should fill you in on the situation before we attend to the urgent matters, like what happened tonight." Olympia gestured for him to go on. Sarutobi summarized what happened. "A very powerful creature called Kyuubi killed a lot of people that day and nearly destroyed this village. However, this Kyuubi could not be outright killed, so the fourth Hokage, Namikaze Minato, sealed it away at the cost of his life. It also took his wife, Uzumaki Kushina, she just gave birth, and their deaths have left someone behind, a kid." Olympia's tone darkened. Sarutobi nodded gravely. "Yes, they have a son, however, Minato sealed the Kyuubi inside Naruto." Olympia widened her eyes at the implication. "Is the kid okay?" "Naruto is fine, he came out relatively unscathed," Sarutobi confirmed. "I think your definition of unscathed is a little twisted, having a demon doesn't portray that," Olympia shot back. "True," Sarutobi had to agree. "You called me here because of this Naruto boy," Olympia stated simply. "Exactly, I know that the villagers are unlikely to treat him as the hero Minato wishes. This village isn't a safe or stable environment for Naruto to live in. I am hoping you can find someone to adopt him and raise him away from this village until he's ready." "I see," Olympia nodded. An uncomfortable silence followed Olympia's laconic answer. Olympia sighed. "Very well, I shall see the stars to see who is the best to become Naruto's legal guardian and raise him until he comes of age." "But," Olympia's periwinkle eyes glowed, "you must not question the answer given by my sight." "Understood," Sarutobi nodded and let Olympia do her thing. Olympia closed her eyes and opened them as something in her eyes flashed. Her entire outline had the blue glow and she floated all the way up to the ceiling. She made a noise and said, "I see the light." She opened her galaxy cape that was shimmering with stars and the entire office was bathed in green light. From the green light came a projection. "For the best paths for both, he will be the key. I can see all the pieces will fall into place with the help of this boy." The green light formed the shape of an eye and opened a vision of Ash. "Moreover, she will push him to this path." A vision of Delia appeared and he will find the answer to uniting his fractured team. With that, the vision ended and Olympia fell on the ground. "Who was that?" Sarutobi had asked Olympia. "That is a sure red Satoshi Ketchum, better known as Ash Ketchum, Hess the strongest champion among all the regions. He recently got the title after defeating the 4 strongest Elite Fours," Olympia said. "He will be a good candidate as he has an all-loving nature." "And the woman?" Sarutobi pressed. "Delia Ketchum, Ash's mother, she has raised 2 kids before and I am sure that until Ash turns of age or something happens to Delia, she can help him out," Olympia explained. Sarutobi considered this and thought this was a good idea. If Ash was the strongest champion, chances are he could raise Naruto to survive in the shinobi world. "That's how we ended up with Naruto," Delia told him happily. Ash gave an unimpressed look. Trust his mother to neglect the fact that they were technically in hiding and take in a baby she never met just because the baby had lost both his parents. While he loved his mother very much, he felt that sometimes she made decisions without even thinking of her current situation. Olympia was going to get it from him when morning came. Pikachu and Lucario shuddered at the murderous aura Ash gave off. Olympia was meditating with her apprentices the next morning in her gym. She conjured up 5 smoky figures, 3 males and 2 females. One of the female figures, who was translucent compared to the others, flickered between being visible and invisible. Eventually, the female figure turned red and seemingly vanquished the other figures. "If that happens, the team never be the same again," Olympia frowned. Just then, shouts from outside that drew their attention. Champion Ashura, I'm sorry, but Olympia-sama is in the middle of her mediation, you can't disturb him now, a female voice said, belonging to one of the ones who help maintain the gym, as opposed to being her apprentice. Don't give me that crap. I have a bone to pick with that woman. A young boy's voice replied furiously, a voice Olympia knew too well. I didn't expect him to come here so soon, Olympia expressed, visibly worried. What's happening? Carrie was a little fearful of that tone. You see, Olympia-sama had finished a huge prophecy last night and she is the person tried to persuade Ash, but he was having none of it. Out of my way. A cackle of electricity flashed, the apprentices winced and hoped that Ash didn't hurt that woman too badly. The Oni Star gym doors blasted open with a sound similar to a thunder, and the PAL champion stormed in, his rapier cackling with yellow electricity. He fixed his eyes on the floating Olympia and gritted his teeth, there was a raging storm in his eyes. On the contrary, Pikachu and Lucario looked more docile, like children being embarrassed at their parents. Hello, Champion Ashura, fine time to drop in, the psychic specialist deadpanned, earning an even more heated glare from Ash. Olympia, what the hell did you do? You just basically saddled my mother with more responsibility. Ash yelled, pointing the rapier at her. And harming my staff and breaking into my gym like that is not an appropriate thing to do first thing in the morning, Olympia said calmly. Oh, stuff it, Olympia. I came here to ask you what made you think my mother would make a good guardian. Ash was livid, though he did not fire at Olympia yet, you're leaving a child under the care of someone who doesn't have the mental capacity. Or the funds. And how has she proven to not have the mental capacity? Olympia raised a brow. Ash heaved a deep sigh, as his stomach did a belly flop onto the ground. Of course, he never really mentioned much about his home life, moving to Pallet Town was supposedly for a simpler life but things were actually complicated. Can't you just find a better candidate? Ash thought Olympia's sight was faulty or something, how was she even a psychic specialist? You are right, I did find the best candidate, Delia was the second choice, Olympia smiled. Really? Who? Ash was intrigued, perhaps he could convince the first choice to take the baby. You, Olympia answered. Yeah, sure, and I am the Kalo's queen. Ash shot back, scoffing. It's true, Ashura, when I used my sight, you came first in the vision, so technically, you have a greater claim to be his guardian, Olympia shrugged. While I admit I am no expert when it comes to parenthood, I'm pretty sure that to be a parent, you have to be at least 18, I am still 2 years away from it, Ash pointed out. Oh no, actually, since you are a champion and hunter, you are basically emancipated, Olympia smiled serenely, but since you are underaged as you mentioned, we agreed to give Naruto to Delia, since she has experience raising 2 children, she did raise both you and. Don't you dare say that name. Ash hissed, and technically, we took care of ourselves when we left at 10. How is my mother going to cover expenses? You are a champion and a hunter, I am sure you have quite some money on your bank account, you can cover Naruto's expenses, Olympia had an answer to that too. That's if I don't blow them away paying for damage repairs, Ash grumbled. Alright, I heard enough. Charlene interrupted, look, Champion Ashura, I know you are worried about Delia doing this on her own, and I'm sure we can reach a compromise. What? Ash folded his arms. It's obvious that you want what's best for the kid, so why not help your mother raise him as a big brother? You are worried for her financial and mental situation, so you can help cover the expenses and make sure she is doing fine when cover the other duties. I'm sure that the kid will benefit more if he has at least 2 people taking care of him, as opposed to 1, Charlene suggested. But, that means that I might have to move back to Pallet Town, Ash whispered, he didn't like where this was going, after all, he would be away from duty if he went back, moreover, it was dangerous since he would be near that man. Yes, of course, Charlene nodded. What the hell am I supposed to do with my duties then? Ash protested. You can take a few days off work, or get one of your members to cover it for you, if it puts your mind at ease, you can get them to help, that's what makes a team, Charlene said softly. I don't know if you know about my regional team, although we are the strongest hunter team, we are not exactly the most united, Ash mentioned, not to mention, there was something off about every single one of them, particularly his right-hand woman. Yeah, we know, but I am sure that in missions, you trust each other with your lives, I have faith that you'll the answer to mend your team, at least for Naruto's sake, Olympia persuaded. It's not that easy, Olympia, Ash grumbled with frustration, this isn't our business at all. Olympia sighed heavily, I never said it was easy, listen, us hunters and shinobi have been leaving each other alone for decades, frankly, this had me worried of the bleak future it would bring, there is a chance we can avert this just by helping with this one favor, instead of running away from something that we never know before, what if there was something that would make us interact again? Bold you say it's better we are united than become enemies. She walked over to Ash and put a hand over his shoulder. I am aware of your familial issues, Ash. I myself lost my husband and son a few years ago, but here I am, taking the mantle of Oni-Star gym leader and being a lost hunter. I'm not saying that we're all the same, or that you shouldn't deal with your emotional baggage, but sometimes, you just have to move on. You had a husband and son. Ash was surprised, no one knew that Olympia even married. Olympia nodded, both are dead, however, after all, shinobis engage in quite a lot of wars. She married a shinobi. Ash thought that was news. Olympia smiled sadly at the teen, her mood dampened slightly with the mention of her loss. Think of this as a new fresh start, a chance to prove that you are worthy of being the chosen one. If you can prove to those ninjas that we hunters are not as bad as they think we are, we could avert any crisis and actually work together. Show everyone that you are truly deserving of being the strongest champion. Stunned silence followed Olympia's encouragement. Ash wanted to refute Olympia, that he had already proved himself, but he was silent as he was unable to. Olympia was right, after what happened to his family, he was iffy about yet another addition that Delia so happily accepted. Ash sighed in defeat as he calmed down, he could not think of a way out of this one. Alright, I'll help my mother out in raising Naruto, I'll even talk to my members about this. Then it settled. Olympia was visibly satisfied, but Ash pointed a finger at her. Wait, before anything, I am going to talk to this person that gave the custody to my mother. I will be the one to talk about the conditions of the custody. I want the meeting as soon as possible. Understood? Ash asked. Olympia nodded, signaling her team to send the message to the Hokage. Of course, I'll see that my side has made the best choice. The pair, along with Olympia's apprentices, made their way to Pallet Town. There, they saw Delia teaching a teenage girl with honey orange hair and cerulean blue eyes how to hold the baby. She was wearing a white and blue sleeveless shirt and navy denim shorts. Her sneakers are streaked with red, blue, and white. Underneath her clothes, she had a red bikini top with a blue gem in the center. She topped it off with red bikini bottoms that looked more like short shorts. In her hairband, there was a mega stone, moreover. There was a sea blue rook symbol sewn on the left part of her sleeveless shirt. I see that you're getting to know Naruto, Misty, Ash said sarcastically when he saw the boy. You know it, Ash, Misty winked as she held a babbling Naruto. Give him here. Ash hastily snatched Naruto away from, afraid that Misty would drop the baby. After all, from the glistening drops on her body, he could tell she went for a swim earlier. Oh, Olympia. Are you here to finalize Naruto's custody? Delia said, smiling at her. Yes, I will be taking Ash with me to see the Hokage. Olympia nodded and giving Delia a meaningful look. Are you taking anyone with you? No, I am pretty sure they would come on their own. Ash thought of that person. After all, it is her job to protect me. Pikachu and Lucario grimaced slightly as they knew who Ash was talking about. Speaking of which, I wonder what she's up to. Ash wondered. You know what? He'll call her. With that, he opened his Communitex. Drip drip. The brown staff that had intricate vines patterned around the ends was being held by a hand. There was white leaves patterned at the end of the vines, each end had a transparent-looking crystal on it. Blood dripped off from one of the crystals. A girl staggered to a man's corpse, with her face slightly bruised and bloodied. The girl's black hair flowed in the slight breeze, as her amethyst eyes were as cold as ice. She was wearing a black headband in her hair and wore a sweater that was navy blue at the shoulders and at the bottom, and black in the middle. The sweater was also emblazoned with a black wavy sigil. She complemented her outfit with silver bracelets on her wrists that had a pair of angel wing symbols surrounded by snowflakes on it and a white scarf. Along with grey leggings and white-heeled boots. What stood out was the girl's voluptuous figure and an extremely impressive set of knockers any girl would kill to have. Overall, the girl gave off a supernaturally beautiful image, even if she was splattered with blood. Her pin, in the form of a grey knight, fell onto the ground and broke into two. Finally I got my payback, the girl thought. Unknown to her, she was being watched from the window located a floor above. In the area, a man with combed dark brown hair watched on with interest. The young man had chiseled features and a pair of sapphire blue eyes that radiated a fierce, uncompromising intelligence. He looked to be at his mid-20s at best. The young man also wore a blue business suit with a black tie and was stirring his tea in a porcelain cup. An air of seriousness surrounded him. It looks like she managed to kill the head of the Blacklist department, Chairman Anderson, someone commented. William Anderson turned to the guy and sipped his tea from her shadow Pokemon. You should know that her potential knows no bounds, he replied calmly, as if he was talking about the weather. It will be a shame if her talents are not utilized elsewhere. She will make for a great leader in the Blacklist department. The ones in the room shuddered. The Blacklist department was known for their less than respectable morals, such as eliminating individuals that were considered potential threats in a ruthless manner. She's only a teen, though, another pointed out. Shinobi has been raising child soldiers for years, there's nothing wrong with that, William shrugged. Besides, you know Shinobi have people such as the Uchihas, who are known for their prodigious skills. She's our best chance if they should go up against us. Besides, the previous leader of the Blacklist department had been grooming her in secret to become the next leader for years, William went on, smiling sardonically. The previous leader had succeeded in crushing her dreams of being a poke idol, so her drive should be taken somewhere else. He then got up and ordered, transfer her to the Blacklist department, she is the queen we need. When the girl opened her e-handbook, she saw that her symbol had been changed from the charcoal gray knight to a black queen. Black? That color means. She dropped the device and took a step back. How did this even happen? Before she could even react properly, her communidex rang. She blinked and knew that Ash needed her now. With that thought, she collapsed her staff back into a wand and left. Good luck. Delia waved as Ash cradled the sleeping baby with him. They were surrounded by the apprentices, and they glowed with psychic power. Next thing they knew, they were outside the Hokage's office. Olympia then knocked on the door, stating her presence. I am still not happy with this, Ash commented when they were told to enter the Hokage office. When he came in, he was glaring at the old man who started this whole thing. His eyes flickered at a familiar presence. She was here. Pikachu and Lucario's eyes became alert, as if they knew she was there as well. Oh, you're Ash? The old man asked, as the pair had reminded him of a certain someone. Pleasure to meet you, I will be expecting a lot of good things from you. What did Olympia say about me again? Ash thought, settling for a strained smile. Really? That's nice to hear. At Naruto's babble, Ash remembered why he was here. Anyway, we're here to establish the conditions for the adoption to make sure we are on the same page. Of course, Ashura, you know he won't do something to get on your bad side, Olympia commented. Ash tched and looked over an adoption papers that was handed to him. What? We have to visit here? He was looking at a clause. Why, of course, we need to check on Naruto's well-being, see he is being treated well, Sarutobi smiled. Fair enough, wait, what's this clause? Ash read, I am not supposed to talk about his parentage and his condition as a Jinchuriki. Well, as a powerful ninja, Minato had a lot of enemies. They would probably want to get revenge on him via his son if word got out that he had one, so I believe that his status as a Jinchuriki and his parentage should be a secret outside of Konoha, Sarutobi explained. Doesn't the kid have a right to know who his parents were? We're basically lying to the kid. Kids aren't stupid, you know, Ash scoffed. He's bound to figure out something is up in 5 seconds flat. I guess you got a point there. You can tell Naruto they were powerful ninja who died on the night of the attack of the Kyuubi, Sarutobi suggested. Just don't mention their names or the fact that it's sealed in him. I disagree, it's lying by omission. If the village knows, which I am sure it is the case, then you can't keep it a secret from him, Ash shot back. He had enough lies for a lifetime, so no, I don't think we will keep the secret of the Kyuubi from him. It's for his own protection, Sarutobi insisted. Ash gave a dumbfounded look. How is keeping his parentage and the fact that he's harboring the Kyuubi inside him protecting him? Of course, the Hokage wasn't going to back down either. Look, his parents would want their child to be raised to be as normal as possible. You know that is not possible. Naruto had a burden thrust upon him the day he was born. Ash cut him off. He looked at where Pakura should be and heaved a silent sigh. Ash went on. Don't tell me your next move is going to involve some law forbidding anyone from talking about the Kyuubi. At his silence, Ash gasped as he realized the implication. It was. Enraged, a chair somehow flew to the nearest wall, slamming against it. Immediately, Ash felt a hand on his shoulder, but he could not see anyone. He could almost imagine her giving an almost imperceptible shake of the head. Sure enough, a low female voice in his head said, "Hey, calm down." Ash's head was then grabbed and turned to the sleeping infant, as if to tell him that he would wake the kid. Ash took a deep breath and exhaled, but did not lessen his glare. How could you? Do you have any idea how ridiculous this sounds? I am trying to protect the boy, Sarutobi was frowning. How else can he have a normal life? Your definition of protection basically means you are going to ignore the elephant in the room. You're just running away from the inevitable. Ash shook his head, wondering if the man went senile. Ash sneered at the thought of people who just run away, just like how he did when things went bad and never contacted his own family for years. You can go ahead and ignore it, but it's not going to go away on its own. I am sure everyone else knows that. Sure, banning people from talking about it would hide the ugly truth from Naruto, but then what? Ash took a breath and went on. If the villagers knew the Kyuubi is inside him, they are just going to see him as the demon that destroyed the village. If we see it from Naruto's point of view, they are just treating him badly for no reason. They are going to feel that they were free to abuse him. You are going to doom him. Ash banged his fist on the table. Accepted already. It's impossible for Naruto to have a normal life, with all the killing and bloodshed. I say none of the shinobi or hunters even have a normal life, capiche? Just then, Naruto woke up and started to whimper. This forced the talk to be paused as Ash got ready to rock him, only for a bottle of warm milk to be promptly shoved in his hands, widening his eyes. He wondered just when she prepared those things. He then adjusted Naruto in his arm and gently placed the milk bottle in his mouth to feed from. Right after he was done, Naruto then spat some milk on Ash's jacket, much to his chagrin. As he removed it, a clean jacket was shoved on him and took the dirty one. All these was done so fast, the Hokage thought Ash had some sort of conjuration technique. Ash sighed, but smiled with thanks. He really didn't know what he'd do without her. After all, she was the one who secretly relayed to him what to say to the Hokage to refute his points. Ash held up a finger and said, if I may put in my 2 cents, just because Naruto would never have a normal life doesn't mean he can't be happy. We can at least ensure that he lives a meaningful, fulfilling childhood. While it is true the children of the village may judge him unfairly, but that is the reason why Naruto was set to be raised away from them. Sarutobi spent a few moments silent, pondering Ash's words. A smile slowly crept his wrinkled face, and soon the old ninja was chuckling. You proved your point, Ashura. I guess I can see why Olympia's prophecy saw you as the one. You win. There will be not special laws regarding Naruto. I trust that you can be tasked with his protection and well-being. Sarutobi concluded. He decided he would have to revise the adoption agreement. Wouldn't have done so well without her, really, Ash thought. It's too bad she's too dangerous to have her presence be let known. Then we await the revised agreement, Ash stated simply, and he stood up, knowing she would be by his side. Here's one more thing I'd like to talk about, Sarutobi told him. Ash paused and turned to him. Should Naruto choose to be a ninja here, would you be coming along with him? Sarutobi was sure those two had the talents to easily become a powerful Chunin, Kage level even. But the addition of hunters to their force, even if part-time, he was hoping that it would boost the hopes of the citizens that it was possible for both societies to work together. Maybe even in the long run, it could prove beneficial, should there be a world-class threat. My only commitment is to take care of Naruto. Well, my hands are not clean. I don't know if we can stain it even more, Ash sighed. Joining to help the ninja forces means killing even more people, and hunters don't do that as often. That was for the Blacklist department, after all. Think about it. You are here to prove hunters are not as bad as shinobi perceive. You can do some good by proving you are here to help. Sarutobi was almost pleading. We could help each other. If he needs us here with him, then Ash paused. Fine, if there's a mission that have a lack of ninjas capable of doing it, you can call on one of us. Also, my connections with the other regional champions can be used if you need outside help. However, I will only do this on one condition. If we need help, you send your forces too. In time, maybe we can exchange more with each other. Such as knowledge. Sarutobi seemed to agree with his terms. I look forward to working with you and your team, he said in a heartfelt manner. Then it's all settled. I will be awaiting the revised agreement, Ash told him curtly. Once we can agree, we'll visit from time to time and can discuss home arrangements. Let's go. Olympia, who was at the doorway, nodded. Oh, and by the way. Next time you visit the village, better wear appropriate clothes, the Hokage called out jokingly. After all, to the shinobi, people like Ash were considered oddly dressed, as the shinobi in general dressed for practicality rather than aesthetics. Furthermore, it would have given away their aristocratic status due to their dressing being comparable to a modern version of the clothes worn by the nobles or the royal family. It might result in people attempting to kidnap them for ransom or something. I know, Ash sighed at the jest. I had no time to change, alright. When they turned their backs on him, Sarutobi saw a vision of Hashirama in Ash's place for 1 second. Hashirama-sama, are you seeing this? Sarutobi thought with a smile. He then frowned, since he felt there was something off, like there was a third person there. However, none of the Anbu alerted him of anyone else being in the room. When they left, Olympia turned to Ash. Because the door was closed, she had a moment to speak to him privately. You didn't tell him about her, Olympia stated. Ash shook his head. I do not trust that they won't abuse her abilities. Besides, it's not good to show your hand this early. Have you referred her to a therapist? Olympia questioned. If we can actually find a therapist that doesn't attempt to sexually assault her or gaslight her to think everything is her fault, then well talk, Ash shot back, and those who were actually competent gave up on her case when she made no progress. We still can't tell what's wrong with her. Olympia nodded solemnly as they reached the designated teleportation point. I get it, by the way, Ash. What? Ash blinked up at her. Hiding her like how you do now may only prove detrimental, even if you do not know it yet, Olympia warned. Ash, Pikachu and Lucario ended up in what looked like an extremely elegant hallway, which was filled with tall vases of real live white roses, lovely beige wall-to-wall carpeting and paintings of ultimate sailing ships and fruit and pretty ladies and handsome men, with huge platinum frames around them. There were also some picture frames featuring the group. However, one of the members was in silhouette, making it impossible to tell whether it was a boy or a girl. Pikachu and Lucario frowned at the sight of the pictures. Three people stood in the middle of the living room, chatting away. The first was a young man with black hair and fringe that was combed to the side and amber eyes. He towered over the other two members and had a somewhat muscular build. He was wearing a simple blue shirt that had a logo that said, "Save the Ocean," along with a simple black jacket and matching jeans. At the collar of his shirt was a pin with a sea blue bishop, similar to Misty's. His leather belt also had a keychain with a keystone hanging off it, and he also donned on dark blue MMA gloves. He leaned against the wall and had his arms folded. Beside him was a slender purple feline creature speckled with yellow rosettes. It had a pink mask marking over its eyes, a pink nose, and small yellow markings over its green eyes. It had two pairs of long yellow whiskers and a tufted yellow underside. It had a long curving tail with a sickle-like shape toward the tip. Standing next to the young man was boy that had combed down chocolate brown hair with round baby blue eyes. He was wearing a white shirt with blue horizontal lines along it and a dark teal gray jacket that had a symbol of a gaming controller on the chest pocket. At the collar of the hoodie, he had a keystone pinned there as a brooch. He also had dark gray pants on and wore a pair of white and blue sneakers. At his white socks, there is a teal bishop sewn on them. He had an awkward smile on his face as he hugged his laptop, looking from the boy to the girl. On his shoulder was a spherical, rodent-like Pokemon. Most of its front was white, while its back was mostly gray. It has black eyes, a short pointed snout with a black nose, and rounded ears. On each cheek was a circular, yellow marking. Moreover, it had stubby arms and legs. Standing across from the pair was a girl with long, black hair where the front seemed to be tied into pleats and then pleated again at the back. She had emerald green eyes and a sweet smile on her face. She was wearing a dress that was white at the top and pink at the bottom, with a black belt across her waist. On the pink skirt, there was a poodle printed on it. She also wore white ballerina flats and was holding a white and pink laced parasol. The parasol was open and resting on her shoulder as she talked animatedly with them. She also wore a brooch that pinned her collar together. The brooch was a leaf green bishop. Floating around her was what looked like a large white teapot with cracks and holes on it. The teapot was blue with patterns of swirls around the teapot. The teapot exposed a purple body with yellow eyes, mouth, and lower body. It also had two small eggs. "What are you guys talking about?" Ash asked his teammates, positioning Naruto's head on his shoulder. At his voice, the three turned to him, along with their Pokemon. "Nothing." The brown-haired boy squeaked. Of course, they are talking about her again, Ash thought. The girl stared at him in a slightly dreamy fashion and spotted the baby in his arms. As did a baby. Ash pinched the bridge of his nose as everyone gathered around the baby. Just as the baby stirred, the girl looked down at the baby and smiled at him. He smiled back, kicking his tiny legs in excitement. Ash sighed as the legs kicked just below his shoulder, only feeling a dull ache from them. "That's so cute." The girl cooed as Ash shifted the baby so he was facing his group. She tickled the baby's stomach and elicited giggles from Naruto. "What's his name?" "Naruto, has my adopted brother," Ash replied simply. "You can play with him later, Akeno, I'm going to check on her." Did she expose her presence?" The brown-haired boy stammered. "Don't be stupid, I'm going to introduce her to Naruto officially," Ash declared. "Isn't it a bit too dangerous to do so?" The black-haired boy frowned. "Yeah, thanks to her, every single region had to shut down their showcase and contest circuit. Some performers and coordinators were even killed." Leopard grimaced. Ash knew Leopard was just a little sore that her trainer's career was impeded because he could not host events anymore. However, Ash figured that was a drop in the bucket for Jude. "It isn't her fault." Ash defended. After all, the stronger the person, the stronger the shadow Pokemon would be. Because the shadow Pokemon once belonged to their elite leader, that was why even the champions currently had a difficult time trying to capture or subdue them. In fact, none of the shadow Pokemon causing havoc had been captured as of now. Then, there was what would happen to the original trainer if the Pokemon turned shadow. Shaking his head, Ash then rushed off to where Pakura's room was. Ash shifted Naruto to one arm. She should be holed up in her room by now. He knocked on the door 3 times with his free hand. "Paku." He knocked 3 times again. "Paku." Ash then knocked 3 times again. "Paku." The door opened and Pakura gave him a blank look. "Meet Naruto officially." Ash held out the baby to her. Naruto babbled and reached towards her. Pakura blinked, her amethyst eyes slightly wider and examining Naruto like he was a new specimen. She reached out with slightly shaking hands as Ash handed Naruto to her. Naruto snuggled into her ample chest and promptly fell asleep. She gave him a blank look and Ash said, "Look, I don't like the fact that you have to be invisible every time you go out." Pakura's lip turned downwards very slightly. Ash gave a look of pity and went on, "However, it's critical that they do not know about you. You are bound to be noticed the moment you step out." She then looked down at the sleeping baby. "I know, my mother adopted him even though we are technically hiding, that's just how she is, always helping others," Ash rambled, changing the subject. "I guess we would be his big siblings from now on, can I count on you?" Pakura grimaced, but gave a single nod. She tried to give Naruto back, but he won't let go. Pakura's face twisted in unnoticeable uncertainty. I suppose you would be having him for now, Ash smiled with slight amusement, Toodles. Pakura gave a blank look as Ash skipped off. A month later. While it was true that Ash was going to raise Naruto in the regions, he still had to visit with Naruto to let Sarutobi make sure Naruto was doing well, which was why he didn't put much stuff inside the house because it was only once a year. However, it still took Ash some time before he could actually settle in for a visit. With his own money and help from his teammates, who were all too happy to help, they managed to remodel what looked like a 3-story house with a nice garden. They were ready to move in within the week thanks to the entire team. Philip had volunteered to set up Naruto's bedroom. Despite everyone exchanging wary glances, Ash decided to let the inventor have his way. The fact that he locked the door and didn't allow anybody to enter until he was done made Ash wonder just what kind of gadgets he was thinking of installing. As Ash heard the drilling and banging coming from the room, Ash couldn't help but have a feeling he shouldn't have agreed to Philip decorating the room, as he thought back of the dreadful looking food he usually made. Sure, it always tasted much better than it looked, but still. Alright, here it is. Philip exclaimed as he finally opened the door. Please don't tell me it's a boring workshop, please don't let it be a boring workshop, Ash thought. What do you think? Philip smiled, brushing his brown hair aside. Ash had to admit that it wasn't as bad as he had expected. The bedroom only had one crib, but it was large and under an elegant canopy, between soft, silky fabric and a thick fluffy comforter. Although the walls and shelves were still empty, Philip had stated those were now for Naruto to customize and personalize as he grew up. There was also an empty wardrobe. There was a desk with a PC build set up and a comfy chair, as well as a flat-screen television. There were also drawers that were empty. At least it doesn't look like the food you make, Ash commented, no gadgets. Oh, here's the best part. Philip showed them a baby monitor that would alert the entire house when the baby cries. Moreover, you put wheels on the crib to direct the crib to us when he is crying. Ash was horrified. Why, of course. What if the baby is choking on the blanket and needs help? Philip shrugged, not too fazed by the killing intent Ash was giving him. I know I didn't have children before, but I have seen news on this. Next thing you're telling me, you have installed some research lab somewhere. Jude folded his arms. Oh, I did, I'm still preparing the bases, Philip chirped, his eyes shining at the thought. Wait, bases? Ash noted the plural form. Of course. One for each of us, a secret place to develop our talents. Philip was bouncing with excitement at the prospects of the new project. I've already prepared the passages and blueprints. Pakura and Jude could only sigh. You know what, just do your thing, Ash waved in dismissal. Philip put a peace sign upon hearing Ash say that. Great, now that we are done, shall we get some more supplies? Jude suggested. I'll ask Pakura to accompany me to get baby supplies. Ash stopped him. You don't mind, do you? Are you sure? I can do the shopping, Jude offered, looking uneasy. She may be tired from helping. There was an underlying tone, which Ash knew that they could not give her presence away. She needs some fresh air, Ash waved it off. Sure, why not, Jude shrugged. Good to hear. Ash grabbed her arm and gave her a look. She grimaced but turned invisible. Before following him to Konoha's baby store, Ash left Naruto behind in the care of Akeno. If someone thought criminals were scary with their weapons, masks and or ugly faces, they apparently never been to a baby store. Everything was just so adorable. The whole store seemed to be designed in light pastel colors, with some childish music that was targeted to children playing. It gave Ash goosebumps. He'd rather fight a horde of shadow Pokemon than be here. The people in there, most of them women, seemed to be staring at Ash, like they knew why he was there. Some of them gave Ash judging looks like how one would judge a teen parent. He felt Pakura tug at him, and he nodded. They pressed on, carefully going through every aisle to pick up every single thing they could possibly need. Well, Pakura did. Actually, the things include diapers, formula, clothes, pacifier, baby creams and shampoos, pram, and items to baby-proof the house. At least Paku was thorough, Ash thought, not noticing Pakura sneaking away a little while. After checking everything on the list, he set the cart aside to make one last sweep of the store, stopping in the clothing aisle. Should he get another Odyssey? But which one? Earlier, Pakura had simply taken everything in the smallest sizes, but now he found himself wondering which color would suit Naruto better. What about blue? Or was that too stereotypical? Get a pink one? Did that seem like he was trying too hard? Another color? There were so many. He couldn't do this. If he couldn't decide on this simple thing, how was he going to be a good big brother to Naruto? How could he help his mother? What if the little one turned out to be like him? What if Ash somehow decided to run away from Naruto just like he did to Ash? What if that man finally found them? What would he do to Naruto? Ash felt nauseous as his knees gave out under him while he was still clutching a bunch of onices. He wasn't going to make it. It felt like his chest was being squeezed with a fist. He couldn't breathe and his vision went blurry. What was happening? Please make it stop. Look at me, a voice beside him said. Ash turned to face the woman talking to him, flinched back when he saw it wasn't Pakura. The girl had fair skin and a slender build. She had long black untamed hair reaching her upper back and red eyes with an additional ring in them. She wore the standard Konoha shinobi outfit with a flak jacket and a simple sleeveless red outfit underneath it. She also had the Konoha forehead protector and regular shinobi sandals. "You're having a panic attack, just try to calm your breathing," the girl said. Pakura heard the thud and quickly rushed to Ash. Her hand glowed white and pink with the intent of helping. She was even ready to drop her invisibility. However, she saw the girl next to him and paused. The girl's smile was so gentle, so understanding, in that way that reminded Ash of his mother when she tried to calm him down after that person ran away from home 13 years ago. She held out her hand, waiting for Ash's consent to touch him. With a little energy he nodded and she placed her warm hand on his arm. The panic attack. Him. He had faced off a lot of villainous teams and traveled through entire regions, yet here he was having a panic attack over a single baby. The pain inside his chest confirmed it. The girl was speaking, though to Ash it was all a buzz. It did not matter, however, her gentle voice, her soothing tone and her soft touch was helping him regain his bearings. It took a while, but he was almost breathing normally again, the pain inside his chest lightening to a dull ache. Ash was suddenly embarrassed. He was supposed to do much better than this. He was a champion, so he had to build all those walls for the sake of leading his region and not letting his mother worry, yet. "Hey, it's okay," the girl, who was kneeling before, was now sitting comfortably next to him. "Believe me, panic attacks are nothing new to shinobi." "I see," Ash mumbled, as the girl finally sensed someone approaching them. From Ash's expression, the girl knew Ash knew the incoming person. "Yup, anyway, not to cut this short, but I've got a mission I need to start getting ready for. It was nice meeting you," the girl stated as she stood up. "I think you will do fine. If you need help again, I will be happy to assist." "I'll keep that in mind, thank you. I'm afraid I never asked you for your name," Ash said to her. She smiled. "Kurenai, Ikki Kurenai introduced, before walking away. Ash noticed a very faint pink glow, and he said, "I'm fine, Paku, no need to calm me down." The glow disappeared. "Let's just get to the counter." By the time they got home, it was nighttime, both were exhausted, and Ash noticed the rest of his team were already asleep. While it took no time for Pakura to fall asleep, Ash remained awake. He was still concerned for his mother, as he was still out there. Could he really do this when the threat of him still loomed over their heads? Why did Olympia even see him in the prophecy when his family was such a wreck? Ash's mind was racing, wondering what fate had in store for him. He went over and over with the possible scenarios of how destiny could or would screw him over, all in the name of making him stronger. He spent a few hours tormenting himself by wondering what would have happened had Delia not chose to run away with Ash. "Come on, Ash, you wouldn't have known that he would run away and leave you and Mum," the champion told himself. "The least you can do now is to help your mother as much as you can and take care of your new brother." He then got up and quietly went to Naruto's bedroom. He made sure not to wake any of his teammates up, as they had worked hard during the day. Ash stood over the crib to look at the infant, who was sleeping soundly. "Hello little one, how are you doing?" Ash whispered. In response, the baby shifted although he was still asleep. "I'm sorry for what you had to go through, the nightmare never ended for me either, but I hope I could lighten it up for you. We'll all be here." Ash sighed as he gazed at the sleeping baby. "Can I be honest with you? I don't think I am actually ready to be a big brother to you, because I don't have the best role model. I guess if it's to make Mum happy or just help her at all, I'll do it. Hopefully nothing else happens," Ash murmured, stroking the baby's cheek. At that point, Ash's e-mobile, sometimes jokingly known as Pokemob, lit up with an alert message from Professor Oak. He opened it into tablet form, wondering what Kanto's research professor wanted to tell him this late in the night. Ash took one look at the tablet and dashed out of the house. Panic was written all over his face. Professor Oak sent a simple picture, but that picture would haunt Ash for the rest of his life. The tablet was left on the table, where it was showing a picture of Pallet Town on fire. The hunters. Ash sighed as he walked into the door of his studio and sat on the couch. "Hey, thanks for coming today," he sighed again, shaking his head. "Today I am going to tell you all a little bit more about hunters and huntresses." Ever since Shadow Pokemon existed, the occupation of hunter and huntresses was created alongside what you may know as the Pokemon League. In other words, the gym leaders, Elite Fours and champions are also hunters themselves, though which type of hunter they are varies. Ash waved a hand as silhouettes of people was in the picture. The Elite Fours and champions of each region represents the region's strongest hunters. Our role is to safeguard the regions and defend them from the constant threat of shadow Pokémon. However, because of shadow Pokémon's true nature, we cannot kill them, only defeat and capture. More on shadow Pokémon later, Ash went on. As a screen behind him now depicted Champion Lance fighting off a shadow Dragonite. You can take the hunter exam at any time, which happens once a year, but the exam is usually very vigorous. You can actually die during the exam, whether from another applicant's hand or the exam is too strenuous. Ash showed a picture of dead bodies piled up and a bloody katana with blood dripping from it. He then turned around to see the picture and turned back to face the front. "Oh, don't worry, we see that every year, nothing new," Ash shrugged, his eyes losing his light. "Well, we had the hunter exam thing for centuries now. The fifth princess, or as we call her the military princess, Gertrude Blade, she made it more intense. She made it into a deadly game to weed out the weaklings and only make sure the best pass. She even never mind." Ash shook his head as he clicked a remote. And a picture of a woman with dishwater blonde hair that was kept to shoulder length appeared. Her build was something else, as she had significant muscles and was clearly very tall. She wore a dark brown military uniform and the captain's cap and medals littering all over the front of her uniform that implied she had led something akin to the Army, Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps and Coast Guard. But if you do pass, you become what people call elite members of humanity. Ash showed his hunter's license, and you get a pretty cool handbook too. You pretty much can go almost anywhere in the world and do almost anything, at least among the regions. That is why so many compete to pass and become a hunter. He then looked around and whispered conspicuously, "If you ask me though, there may be something off about the Blacklist hunters, led by Paku." There were rumors that he was then blasted away by a tornado, Ash's screams following. Pakura walked in with her staff, the crystal glowing a lilac color. She folded her arms, giving a somewhat unamused look towards the direction Ash flew. When Ash arrived in Pallet Town, what greeted him was a blaze of inferno. Pikachu and Lucario gasped at the intense sea of flames. Taking out his rapier, he switched the canister to a cornflower blue. He grabbed his pokeballs and yelled, "All of you, come on out." In front of him appeared his best water-type Pokémon. Blastoise, Floatzel, Crawdaunt, Samurott, Gyarados, Greninja, Lapras, and Feraligatr, his rapier shaking in his hand. Ash pointed to his burning hometown. No words were needed, they knew what he wanted them to do. They each nodded and went in to blast their strongest water-type moves to quell the raging flames. Ash himself followed in, his rapier blasting strong jets of water, like a gunman in a battlefield, shooting at whatever targets he could find. Ash only had one thing in mind. To find his mother. His Pokemon's pleas went unheard, since he wasn't even in his hunter outfit, but he ran in anyway, basically throwing himself into the fray. The fire continued its rage, but he didn't stop moving. As he passed, one of the houses exploded, sending heavy wooden panels towards them. Pikachu's tail glowed metallic, and he swung it at the wooden panels, slicing them in half. Ash pointed his rapier, and jets of water extinguished the flames on the wood. The crackling of fire was all he heard, as silhouettes of townies evacuating were vaguely seen through the fire. Ash could tell his mother wasn't among them. She had a unique ambience about her. Ash shook the worry out of his head as he pointed his rapier at another house, diminishing the fire from the outside. At this rate, he may use up his water gem supply, but his mother being safe was worth any number of Pokémon gems in the world. Wiping tears from his eyes, he continued to trudge to his home. Sure enough, his home had the biggest fire. Ash stared into the fire blankly before blasting a hydro pump to clear the doorway. Kicking open the burning door, Ash found an empty living room. His mother wasn't there. All that was left was her dark green scrunchie. He caught something out of the corner of his eye and saw the family picture of 4. The part depicting his mother was burned and crumbled when he touched it. A piece of paper floated from the back of the picture. It was a single message. A single message, no explanation. Him and his mom had come up with this secret code years ago, as soon as they had gotten away and after his sibling ran away. If one day he got just a single message from her without any explanation, or if she got a single message from him without any explanation, with no indication of when they'd be back, then that meant, "He found us, don't look for me." Ash's eyes were dull, the darkness nearly swallowing his expression. "He found us, don't look for me." Ash squeezed his fists, not noticing his nails digging into his palms and drawing blood. He clutched to the scrunchie, knowing what it meant. Perhaps that man left the scrunchie there on purpose, to leave a personal message to him that spoke of an unfinished business. He was 5 when Head first found out what his gift did, 7 when he found out just what his father did to earn so much, 7.5 when he found out exactly what his father was really doing to him. The fairy tale from Kanto mentioned that once every 10 years, a child was born in Viridian Forest, possessing mysterious powers from the forest. They said the powers could be anything, though the most common being healing and empathy towards Pokémon. Ash had heard of this Cantonian fairy tale regarding those powers since he was a child, and his father had believed in it. It wasn't until that day did he realize the myth was somewhat real. That day, his father's myth had accidentally cut itself while helping Giovanni cut the vegetables with its tail holding the knife, splitting the fur and allowing drops of blood to leak from the heavy wound. Ash, that silly 5-year-old had been, gave the little feline a kiss to try and make it better. Later, that wound had healed. His father was so ecstatic, he had a wide toothy smile, disregarding how he had gotten hurt earlier. He had lifted Ash up and kissed his cheeks, while hugging him tightly. Ash, being the cute naive kid he was, basked in his father's pride towards him. After all, his father had always favored the other sibling because of his intelligence, while he was as dumb as bricks. Little did he know, it was the start of a nightmare. His father brought back mysterious tasty meals, and said it was to see what his gift could do. He whispered that this had to stay their little secret, away from his mother. And oh, that foolish little Ash accepted them with a giggle and a big smile, too awestruck and distracted by the delicious food his father had brought, and finally earning his father's favor to even begin asking how he acquired the cuisine. His father was an affluent person, it wasn't hard to acquire fancy meals. Moreover, the food he brought Ash was working, since the nutrients bestowed him with even more abilities. Do you not like your present, Ashura? Tears involuntarily fell down Ash's cheeks, and Ash could not stop it. He almost emptied his stomach as he remembered what he was being fed. He found us, don't look for me. No, Ash started to sob. Ash. Ash, Pikachu and Lucario tried to get his attention. Ash shook his head, that was when they saw the note. Oh, Arceus. Pikachu knew what this meant. Ash, hey. Stay with us, Ash, Lucario tried to comfort his owner. Swallowing back a whimper, he pressed the note to his forehead. He knew they were prepared, and being found was a possibility, even with the setbacks his father had faced. His organization, underlings, money, connections and powerful battling skills meant it would take a lot more just to take him down. What was worse was that he owned a Pokemon gym too, the strongest gym leader in Kanto. A small, hopeful part of him reminded him that he was a hunter. He was leading a team that was protecting the people and fighting against criminals and shadow Pokemon, doing their duty to better society. However, could he really say that he believed that? We've got to go. Lucario pulled at Ash's sleeves, dragging him outside. Ash stood up like a puppet and staggered outside, only to see people trapped under large rubble, screaming for help. Ash was not even properly equipped, but he ran straight to the burning structure anyway, basically standing in the middle of the blaze. Significant bits of ash and dust flew past him. Ash assumed it was the people that were not so lucky in escaping. At the last moment, Ash reached out and activated a white circle around him. Within the white circle, the rubbles floated upwards, like gravity had been taken from it. Oh. Ash yelled, basically levitating entire houses to get them out. Pikachu and Lucario took it as cue to try and lead the residents to the outskirts of Pallet Town. Ash still refused to relax. Instead, he lifted his rapier up in the air. His rapier glowed blue, and dark clouds appear in the sky before it rained heavily. However, it was heavier than normal, as if even that move was mourning Delia. Slowly, the fires extinguished, but the rain continued. Ash didn't even look satisfied at a job well done. He looked like he was just doing another job. Unfortunately, the crowd thought he looked heroic. Ash, a familiar voice sounded out. Ash turned to see a teenage boy around his age, who had tall, auburn spiky hair, along with brown eyes. The boy was wearing a short-sleeved, dark gray polo shirt with a flipped-up collar and purple cargo pants. His white lab coat was covered in soot, as was his face. He was fiddling with the purple bands on his wrist, looking distraught but relieved. How's the Pokemon, Gary? Ash went straight to the point. They are fine, Gary nodded. Good thing we have an underground chamber, so we can continue operations. Where's your mother? Upon hearing the mention of his mother, Ash stopped and looked down. Gary knew what that meant. Excuse me, Champion Ash. A reporter called out, shoving Gary aside, a camera lens appearing from his hand as he took pictures of a despondent Ash and his Pokemon. Would you care to answer a few questions? I assure you your identity would not be mentioned if you are concerned. Ash turned toward the reporter, but before he could say anything, Lucario grabbed hold of his arm. No, you are not doing an interview today, Lucario muttered as he dragged Ash away, glaring at the reporter. Come on, we gotta get back home. Pikachu showed his displeasure by using Thunderbolt on the reporter's equipment, essentially depriving them of a story. Ash was too drained to resist being dragged along, but his Pokemon didn't miss the way people looked after them helpfully, even as they disappeared into the route. Lucario knew that if the Hunters Association got wind of this incident, moreover, he knew they were currently desperate for a king. He had the dreaded feeling that they'd just found one. Let it be heard that Ash's team were allegedly made of exceptional people. Their talents were a rare gem, being recognized even by the champions of their original regions. They all showed prodigious skills, albeit in different fields. At the age most kids started to learn how to read, being equal to a champion before they hit puberty. and managed to be scouted by the regional champions to undertake a certain secret and ongoing mission during their teens. Once they became a hunter themselves, they took multiple dangerous missions, even if the odds were against their favor, expect them to return without a single scratch. If there was something that seemed impossible, they made it look like it could be done by a new trainer that had not earned their hunter's license, yet, notably, Pakura even managed to earn the night ranking. Which theoretically would have taken years to earn. Of course, since they were still teenagers, they continued to improve, since they had not reached their full potential. However, it was clear that once they reached adulthood, they would be a force to reckon with, and once they got their teamwork sorted out. Regardless of what they have accomplished, they were still teenagers, so they were not prepared for the horror that was in the form of a baby. Where is Ash when you need him? Jude grimaced, covering his ears and giving a look to the wailing baby that was Naruto. They tried everything, such as feeding him, checking his diaper, and even singing a lullaby, but nothing worked. Notably, the baby ate a lot tonight, kind of how a girl would eat her feelings after a breakup or something. Where's Ash's second when we need her? Philip groaned. He would have loved to go back to sleep, but the cries were keeping him awake, and well, 3 heads were better than one when it comes to a crying fit. I can try and concoct something, Akeno suggested with a sweet smile. I am good with herbs. No. The boys said in unison, giving her horrified looks. Well, there were no denying Akeno's skills, they doubted her intelligence. The door to a room opened and Pakura entered. She glanced down at the empty baby food bottles all over the table. Just how much did the baby eat? Were they already teaching him how to eat his feelings? Also, since when could Naruto eat baby food? Should he be 6 months old before trying them? One look at the blender, and Pakura knew, of course, only Akeno would try and blend baby food for variety without any regards to his health. She'd better check Naruto for diarrhea and keep him away from Akeno. Her team members were complete idiots. Then Carcius, Pakura, I need you to check what's wrong with Naruto. Jude pointed to the wailing baby. Pakura let out a silent huff, but walked up to the baby and carried him. Surprisingly, Naruto quieted down, his head snuggled against her ample chest like a pillow. Of course, Jude sighed at the sight. Pakura pressed a hand against his forehead. She blinked when she realized it was a fever. His forehead felt as if it was on fire. They all heard the main door opening. Ash staggered in with his Pokemon. Pakura felt a wave of anger, sadness and fear wash over her. Pakura knew those were Ash's feelings, and she wanted to feel more of it. Ash is back. Akeno brightened up. Ash. Naruto is. Thus do whatever. Ash cut her off curtly. If we're out of milk, go buy it or something. He gave a look that said, don't ask what happened before shuffling back to his room. Naruto started crying quietly once more, almost like he was feeling Ash's emotions. Everyone, sans Pakura, exchanged looks. What just happened? Did something happen to Ash? Pakura wondered. After all, it's clear that the baby was healthy up until Ash went out. Pakura then dismissed it. Yeah, right, the odds of Naruto reflecting Ash's state of mind are about the same as a bride and groom suddenly dropping into Pallet Town. Right now, I should do my duty and take him to see a doctor, even if I don't want him here. Remember to stay hidden, Jude reminded her. The ninjas must not find out about you. No one noticed, but Pakura's shoulders sagged very slightly. A pink flash emitted from her body, making her look like a carbon copy of Ash, still carrying Naruto. She left. When the door closed, she looked towards the direction of the clinic, and where she gauged Kanto was, her body slowly lost opacity, and she started to make her way to Kanto. As she walked past a lazy-looking man with a spiked ponytail and 2 scars on the side of his face, she dropped a minuscule snowflake on him. Ash sat alone in his bedroom, staring out a window. His rapier lay on the nightstand next to the bed. At his window reflection, he saw his mother's smiling face. He reached out his hand to touch it, only for it to be gone. He punched the window, and blood flowed down the cracks. Ash? Pikachu asked, concerned. It's going to be alright, you're going to be alright. But I'm not, Ash responded, silent tears dripping down his face. The town is destroyed, my mother is missing, and he knew his father would target him next. If only I was faster, I could have saved her. Ash, this isn't your fault. Lucario said firmly. It was the easiest thing to say. Maybe it was the one time he accidentally let slip who his father was, causing the slam of one of the doors that shut a starving woman and her child out in the cold for another night. Wrapped in silence, Ash slid his mother's scrunchie around and around his wrist. I didn't do it. Ash stepped back from the glaring kids. Your dad literally steals Pokemon from innocent trainers, do you really expect us to believe that? A girl sneered. Ash gave a wry smile as he brushed his palms against the cracked bloody glass. Of course, villains were not born villains. On the other hand, those who were children of villains would definitely become villains. That was what everyone had said. After all, who knew what those children were learning at home? Then, there was Naruto, a boy who lost his parents the day he was born, and now he had to step up. Was he really up for this? Was Olympia wrong about him? Ash scratched at his face, he had to face facts, there was no guide that he could read to figure out what to do next, it looked like he was on his own. Just then, there was a knock on the door, Ash mumbled, "Come in," expecting one of his team members to call him for another champion-related matter or something. The door opened, only to reveal Misty and Brock, both of them were rubbing lumps on their heads. "How did?" Ash asked, speechless at the injuries on their heads. "I don't know, Pakura came to our doorsteps, knocked us on the heads, and dragged us here," Brock muttered, rubbing his throbbing head, "I didn't even get one word of my pickup line in." Ash managed a wry smile, Pakura probably didn't want to waste any words. "How are you feeling?" Misty's brows were lowered in dismay, and "Don't say you're fine." Ash felt the words stuck in his throat, what was he supposed to say? A flash of his mother's smiling face was in his mind, before flames consumed it, they were so happy together, why did it all go up in flames? Misty was right, whatever the opposite of fine was, that was what he was. However, he had to recover quickly, if he didn't, he risked the same situation as Pakura. The tears flowed down his eyes like a river. Oh, Ash. Misty wiped his tears with a tissue, about to cry herself. Ash screamed in agony, finally breaking down, as his Pokémon, Misty and Brock huddled in a group hug. "I just keep thinking I have to move on, I am still the leader of my team, I need to be the one to get them together and Naruto," Ash rambled. "Ash, you have to take your time, it's okay to step back sometimes," Brock advised, "you may be the leader, but you are still the youngest member." "Actually, I don't know how old Paku is," Ash admitted, she never mentioned it, then again, he knew almost nothing about her at all. "That's besides the point, you can ask one of the older members to look after Naruto for a bit, until you put yourself back together," Misty suggested, "meanwhile, we can go back to the regions for a vacation, and take your mind off for a bit." "Good idea, I'll just ask whoever took Naruto," Ash gave a wry smile, "I mean, my teammates are pretty reliable, I am sure Naruto is in safe hands, well, as long as the team doesn't leave Naruto with Paku, he didn't care too much." He then said, "Well, meet me outside, I'm going to get our profiles from Paku, and send them like I promised to the Hokage whatever his name was." It was just as Sarutobi thought, as he examined the profiles Ash had sent over of his own team, there were indeed 5 members in Ash's team. However, the 5th profile Ash sent over was a silhouette, and most of the info was filled with question marks, the only thing that was written on the profile under the epithet column was Ace Assassin, he could tell that there were certain conditions that needed to be met before more information could be unlocked. "You need me for something, Hokage-sama?" Shikaku Nara stood respectfully behind the elderly man. "You're aware of my decision, right?" Sarutobi asked. "You mean the one where you hand Naruto to the hunters?" "Yes, I do," Shikaku did not know where this was going. "I know you're the best strategist, not an intel gatherer, but I am sure you can do something from this." He handed Shikaku the 5th profile, "If somebody can infer who this person is, it's you." "You don't think that boy trusts you fully," Shikaku remarked, "it's troublesome, but isn't this a given? We are from 2 completely different societies." "Yes, but that is not the reason why I want to know why he is hiding his member," Sarutobi shook his head. "Enlighten me," Shikaku frowned. "The moment the decision of putting Naruto to a hunter's care was announced, I've been receiving dissatisfaction because most felt they could not trust the hunters," Sarutobi admitted, "in particular, I think Danzo and his Anbu branch are carrying a secret investigation on the hunters, particularly the ones in contact with me, but I have no proof. And if Danzo figures out that the hunters are hiding something or someone, he will take it as proof that the hunters are untrustworthy." Shikaku realized he might do something that would worsen the tenuous relationship between us. Of course, Danzo would do that, after all, he was the type to watch both sides fight before swooping in to get the rewards. To say Danzo was an extremist was like saying Pikachu's are electric type, moreover, he was Sarutobi's biggest critic towards his pacifist approach. There were rumors that Danzo secretly recruited talented children to boost his organization and make them kill each other to ensure emotions didn't get in the way, but that was unconfirmed. Shikaku was sure Danzo wanted to be Hokage more than anything and was waiting for Sarutobi to slip up so he could pounce. "That's what I fear, however, that boy leads a region himself, I am sure he has his reasons of hiding his member," Sarutobi sighed. "It's not as if we weren't hiding anything from him either," Shikaku pointed out, "you didn't tell that boy about your suspicions on the night of that Kikbi attack, like how everyone suspects it's the Uchihas behind it, that is why they were regulated to the village border and we weren't allowed to help during the attack. If the boy finds out about a powerful ability that could control the tailed beasts, do you think he'd even be willing to hear us out?" Sarutobi wondered, if anything, he felt Ash would think they would use it on him. "He may be a leader, but he is still a teenager," Shikaku summed up. "Yes," Sarutobi nodded, "it's already bad enough that discord is already among the village, it'll be worse if it's with the hunters, I want to compromise while being aware of the hunters' situation." Shikaku had the gut feeling that the one-eyed, meddlesome extremist was behind the distrust the village had towards the Uchiha clan since then. This is one troublesome situation. That's why I called you, Shikaku. You're one of the few who is smart enough to ensure Danzo doesn't suspect a thing and find evidence of this ace assassin the hunters are hiding and why they are doing so. This will take quite some time, Shikaku admitted. I have almost nothing to work on. I'll ensure to keep an eye on Danzo while you do so, Sarutobi nodded. Unknown to the two, Sarutobi's voice was also emitting from the perfect doll replica of Shikaku that was entirely crafted from ice, while the person holding the ice doll stayed quiet. At the same time, in Kanto. The rain isn't stopping, Gary Oak observed, seeing out the window. It's almost like Ash's morning. Yes, the fire wasn't an accident. I think there is more to the story than just a simple attack, Professor Oak mentioned. It's not the arson that made me suspect something, however. What was it, then? Gary folded his arms. I found a card that has the letter R outside the home, Professor Oak revealed. Should you have told Ash this? Gary asked. I think he already figured it out, Professor Oak replied. Just then, they heard a commotion outside. Professor Oak and Gary exchanged looks before stepping outside, carrying umbrellas. I told you not to follow me. A disgruntled voice said. The speaker was a tall, thin, and handsome young man in a tuxedo. The tuxedo had a black waistcoat and a bright red bow tie that was the same color as his usual scarf. Moreover, he had icy blue hair and matching eyes. It was not far-fetched to call this man a dreamboat. Stephen, you may be the Kanto champion, but if it involves the Ketchums, my husband has a right to know. A regal female voice shot back firmly. This lady was a stunningly beautiful woman, completely decked in a mermaid ivory wedding gown that was layered with lace at the bottom half. It showed her figure rather well. Her long, blonde hair was tied in a bun and was decorated with a diamond tiara at the front. Her short, chic veil was hastily parted. The rain also ruined the dress somewhat, but the woman did not seem concerned about it. Well, that explains the commotion, Gary thought. After all, three rather gaily dressed people just landed in what looked like the aftermath of a disaster. They stood out like a sore thumb. Champion Cynthia. Professor Oak gaped at her bridal gown. What are you? I told you, I got this. Stephen was miffed. You seriously left your own wedding to follow me all the way here? Oh, don't worry, we finished our vows, but we kinda did it while flying here. Cynthia said sheepishly. Stephen looked at Cynthia like she had three heads. Professor Oak's eyes landed on the groom next to Cynthia, who was holding the umbrella that shielded them both. He was a tan-skinned young man with brown eyes, and his short black hair had shorter streams framing his face. Like Stephen, he was wearing a tuxedo with a grey waistcoat, but he had a white boutonniere pinned onto his lapel, and his bow tie was black. However, something about those brown eyes seemed familiar. Wait a minute, you look a bit like Professor Oak started. The pair of brown eyes narrowed as the owner of those eyes lifted the rifle again. Ash shot another target, scoring another bullseye. He ignored the throb at the sides of his head that was trying to tell him he was straining his eyes. He put his eye at the scope and fired, then again and again, until all he could think about was the ache in his muscles and how his head hurt. He heard a noise behind him. He spun around, rapier in hand, already propelling himself forward, screaming in rage and preparing a thrust towards the intruder. He widened his eyes when he saw the orange hair that belonged to Misty and stopped his blade's point mere inches away from her neck. Misty gave him an almost blank look. I did not mean to overwork yourself when we took you out to take your mind off things. Ash smiled apologetically. I just felt I needed to vent. Sorry for almost slicing your throat. Misty shook her head. Ash, it's okay to feel upset, but you don't have to. I'm fine, Misty. Ash snapped, then sighed and slumped against the wall. I'm sorry, it's just I should have insisted she moved out. It has been quite a while since we stayed there, and he got the drop on us, and now Mum is. You couldn't have known, Hess still a powerful individual, Misty said patiently. That is why a lot of people choose to flee him, rather than face him head-on. But as hunters, we learned all about situational awareness and… Ash, you may be a champion, but you are still a teenager, Misty reminded. No one is going to expect you to. But we go out on our journeys at 10, Ash pointed out. We are exposed to potential danger then. I am sure it changed all of us, or do you still feel like the girl who grew up in the shadows of your older sisters? No, Misty answered. It's alright, I am sure shinobi do the same thing to the children too, Ash remarked. Ash gritted his teeth. Either way, I don't have an excuse. I have to take care of Naruto, and I have to be the best champion I could be, especially since I am the youngest. I have to make sure he doesn't take anyone else from me again. You can do that tomorrow, Misty tried to calm him down. You need to rest now. Ash shook his head. You go on ahead, he'll go to bed later. Ash, it's 4 in the morning. Misty was incredulous. Oh, Ash mumbled, a wry smile on his face. He followed Misty to an inn where they were staying. Instead of immediately sleeping, Ash had received a call from Professor Oak. After hearing what he had to say, Ash's jaw clenched, so Cynthia was associated with him. He should have known. He visited the downstairs cafe, contemplating what he should do. True, they were prepared for such a scenario, nevertheless, he had Naruto to consider, and that he could not afford to make any careless moves. The waitress then set a cup with hot cocoa and marshmallows in front of him. "I didn't order," Ash started, but was cut off. "It's from the woman upstairs, blonde hair, gray eyes," the server described, "pretty famous around here." Ash looked up at the edge of the balcony, wondering what she wanted. "Thanks," Ash nodded. "I went ahead to add some honey for the taste, hopefully you'll like it," the waitress winked. Giving an awkward wave, he watched as she walked away. He looked at the mug like it was a bomb, took it, and headed upstairs. Sitting at one of the tables was a tall and slender beautiful lady with wavy knee-length creamy blonde hair that has bangs covering her left eye. Her eyes were gray in color. "Hello, Ash," the woman greeted. Ash looked at her from the top of the stairs for a moment before moving to where she was sitting. "Cynthia," Ash acknowledged. He slightly scoffed when he saw her wedding band and pulled a chair that's beside her, dragging it to a position across from her instead, before sitting down. "So, what do you want?" "We are friends, aren't we?" Cynthia gave a smile. "I figured you'd stay away from me after being married to that guy, since you already made your decision clear," Ash replied, a little tense. Figures he won't invite his own little brother to the wedding. "How about you go straight to the point?" As he said this, he set the cocoa down without even drinking a sip. "I heard what happened to Pallet Town," Cynthia said, in a matter-of-fact tone. Ash didn't confirm an answer right away, instead tapping on the table absent-mindedly. "I don't get how it's any of your business," Ash finally said evenly, "or your husband's business, for the matter." "That's your," Cynthia started, but Ash cut her off. "Is he, really? He left us behind," Ash hissed. "I am pretty sure that's as good as saying we are not family anymore." "He might have his own reasons to do so," Cynthia reminded him. "Funny how he sent not a single note, a call, or any sign that he was alright," Ash sneered, clenching his fists. "He didn't even like me even when we lived together. Now what? He sends you to tell me he wants to play house." "I came here of my own accord," Cynthia said quietly. Ash leant forward and grabbed Cynthia by the forearm. "Look, all this is telling me that he is a coward. He is willing to abandon us just so he stays safe. If he isn't going to come out himself to say this to my face, then he is just proving my point. You were the one who started your journey to find him, that was why you became a hunter." Cynthia's brows were furrowed. "Times change, Cynthia," Ash merely shrugged, letting go of Cynthia's forearm. He refused to even take a sip of the beverage to calm himself down. "One day, you would understand why he left." Cynthia was quiet. "How about this? Why don't you say his reasons, here and now?" Ash shot back. However, Cynthia stayed silent, knowing her husband wanted to tell this to Ash himself. Ash took her silence as her not being able to explain and said, "See? You can't even say a word. It doesn't change the fact that Pallet Town is destroyed and my mother is missing." "He never meant for that to happen," Cynthia stated, shaking her head sadly. "If he knew, he won't." "But it still happened," Ash countered. "I think I would be fine without him." Funny how he held the wedding at the same time this happened. Ash stood up. "I lead Pal now, and I am now a parent, and as the champion, I will do everything in my power to ensure everything runs smoothly. It's not for anyone else, especially you, to worry, and I will inform you if there is." Cynthia wanted to point out that Ash's team was only formed because the other regional champions, e.g., Steven, Lance, Wallace, herself, and Alder, had entrusted each of them with a huge secret task relating to the ongoing hunter exams, but decided against so. Ash was already too emotional to be reasoned with. "Listen, I am happy for you and him, but honestly, it doesn't mean you should try and fix whatever is broken between me and him." Ash shook his head, not that there was anything to fix in the first place, anyway. "I understand that," Cynthia acknowledged, before saying, "Wait, you are a parent?" "Top secret," Ash said flatly. "I don't know what is going on, but you know I am here if you need to talk, right?" Cynthia tried to assure him. "And why would I believe that?" Ash inwardly scoffed, knowing the moment she married that guy, their relationship was going to strain. However, he simply nodded curtly on the outside. A moment of tense silence passed between them, and Ash said, "Tell him if we ever meet again, I will kill him myself." The unspoken threat of warning his brother to stay away was clear. Cynthia grimaced as Ash walked away. "Ash, are you Pikachu?" started when Ash entered the room, but Ash held up a hand. As he went to the desk to refill the chambers in his rapier, he imagined stabbing his sibling with it. A tear fell down his face at the thought of it, but he narrowed his eyes and clutched to the rapier handle tightly. The hand holding the rapier became the hand holding a gun. Pakura, disguised as Ash, fingered the gun in her pocket. The feelings of disdain towards the baby were overwhelming. The baby had taken her chest as a pillow and was asleep. Well, at least his fever was going down slightly, maybe Ash was feeling a little better. The only reason why she hadn't shot his head was because she felt a small degree of pity for him, as she sensed hatred in the villagers' eyes, directed at the baby. Pakura remembered that when she was following Ash while invisible when he first took Naruto out for a walk, people yelled at him to get Naruto away from them and admonished him for putting them into danger by taking that thing out. To Ash's credit, he ignored them at first, but it was the same wherever he went. Someone even tried to attack Ash, since he was seemingly a harmless teenage boy, however, doing it within her sight was a fatal decision. Pakura decidedly took out her staff and aimed her staff, supposedly at the speaker, but blasted the speaker's children into popsicles instead. The people were appalled and more was about to attack Ash, but they felt something sharp and cold against their crotches, although they could not see what it was, they knew not to move, lest their privates got sliced off. Even the shopkeepers did not dare to refuse to serve him because he feared the children would be stuck there until they suffocated or shattered into pieces like the ice. Ash wasn't happy with her decision to target the children, but it was enough to get the people to shut up until Ash finished his walk, only then did Ash telepathically told her to thaw them out. While none of the children died, they had to be hospitalized for hypothermia for months. Ash thought what she did was too far, but Pakura disagreed. After all, she would do whatever it took to ensure the champion's safety, because that was what she was ordered to do. Keep the champion safe. Besides, if you want to ensure they don't hurt you again, go for what they treasure the most. It's a psychological thing. Moreover, the children were born with chakra, she was sure they could survive being frozen for a while. Only Ash's pointed stare prevented her from turning the village into a winter wonderland. If they died well, they could always make more. Much as Ash detested her decision, it did work wonders, though, the verbal abuse stopped, and no one dared attack Ash. Although whenever Pakura followed Ash and Naruto out in secret, people would just scurry home or leave the street until he and his son were far enough, not that she'd mind, but some people just muttered under their breaths, which the assassin heard. Well, she didn't care what they said, whoever tried to attack Ash would be the next popsicle. Naruto would have a hard time making friends, but who cares? As long as Naruto could accomplish whatever task that was handed to him, he'd probably have a bright future ahead. Nodding decisively, she swept the entire diaper and baby formula section. She even raided the medicine made for babies. Before bringing the haul up to the counter, the cashier quelled under Ash's glare as she scanned the items. Pakura opened up her tiny bag and stuffed the items in one by one. The cashier was almost fascinated with how Ash could fit everything into one bag. Without even saying a word of thanks, the teenage boy left with the baby. "Excuse me, miss," a little boy with black eyes and black hair and a ponytail asked quietly. He was wearing a dark blue high-collared shirt and gray pants. "Where did all the baby formula go?" "Oh, some boy with a blonde." The cashier pointed vaguely to the direction where Ash had left. "Thank you." The boy rushed to the pointed direction, hoping to catch up with the person. At the distance, Pakura suddenly stopped before turning into an alley. Someone with a huge potential is coming for her. He might even be going for Naruto, suspecting danger. A ball of bluish-white light glowed on her hands, forming into an ice sword. Pakura turned to point at the crotch of the person only to see thin air. However, she did feel the point of the sword hit something. She looked down, only to see boy who was around 5 or 6. "Don't tell me this little boy." "I'm not here to harm you or your baby," the boy said, a drop of blood flowing from his forehead. His tone was eerily calm, as if he was used to this. Pakura hesitated, but backed away, holding Naruto tightly with one arm and keeping the sword pointed at the boy with the other. She narrowed her eyes, silently telling the boy she would use lethal force if necessary, his age be damned. The boy held his arms up, as if to tell her he was really not here to harm her. "I promise." Pakura took a step further. She was not trusting this boy. This was no ordinary boy. The boy came forward. "I know you're scared for the baby." He tried to keep his tone even. "Your heightened guard even around kids, who should not be a threat. Does it mean that baby is the boy?" ventured to guess, the one with the demon fox sealed inside. Pakura blinked at the boy's deduction. His intelligence is too dangerous. She glared at the boy, still not putting down her ice sword. However, the little boy frowned. The cashier said someone with a blonde baby was the one with all the supplies, but the arms were empty. Could the cashier be wrong? Also, it seemed unlikely this person would hoard everything for a baby, since typically, only women would do that when shopping, which meant you're not a guy at all, the boy surmised, or should I say, you're not the teenage boy you're imitating. That boy is too smart for his own good. I wonder if I should quickly take out my gun and shoot him, Pakura thought, but dispelled her ice sword. She was about to reach for her gun, but how is he? The boy asked her sincerely. Pakura pointed to the baby, the boy nodded. Pakura shrugged. The baby was alright, she supposed, didn't do much except for sleep and cry. Is he different? The boy pressed. He seemed genuinely curious, as opposed to cautious. Pakura immediately knew that he was trying to access what she thought of Naruto. It doesn't matter if Naruto has a demon fox or whatever in him, I would do whatever it takes to keep this kid safe, because he deserves it and it's my duty. Pakura signed with her hands after putting Naruto on her back, not, of course, that the boy knew sign language. The boy signed with his hands, so, you see Naruto as a person. You know sign language? Pakura did not expect that. I studied about it in a book, the boy gestured, are you not afraid of him? Are you? Pakura shot back with her hands. I don't really know, the boy admitted. Let me rephrase the question, what did Naruto do to you? Pakura signed. That made the boy pause, and he said quietly, well, the Kentucky. An almost silent gunshot shot off a single strand of hair from the boy, the bullet hitting the wall behind him, putting aside the smoking gun. Pakura signed, I asked about Naruto, the baby, not that orange fox. The boy paused at the question, truthfully, the teenage boy was right, the baby hadn't done anything at all, and the fear was built from what people whisper about him without any evidence. At this realization, he signed, you're right, he hasn't done anything, so I shouldn't be afraid. He gave her a slight smile, which somewhat astonished Pakura. At least someone understands. Pakura rolled her eyes with a sigh, even though his intelligence was rather unnerving, at least the shinobi had some semblance of hope. Take it from me, those idiots only fear that they would die from the monster, but honestly, they got a higher chance dying from someone else's hand. Pakura signed, before preparing to go, you're the first villager with any remote brains, don't waste it. When she turned her back, the boy introduced, my name is Uchiha Itachi, by the way. Pakura stayed silent, her fingers lifting to tell him her name, however. Remember to stay hidden, Jude reminded her, the ninjas must not find out about you. That's right, she was supposed to be Ash, even if the boy knew it wasn't, he was not supposed to know exactly who she was, hence, she just clenched her fists and resolutely kept walking. Nevertheless, the gesture of her being about to sign didn't leave Itachi's notice, the corners of his mouth moved downward slightly at this. It wasn't until she left then Itachi realized he forgot to ask her for some of her baby formula, which was why he even approached her. However, his foot hit something, looking down, Itachi saw a huge bag of formula and even some diapers and medicine that he had wanted. Itachi wondered how she knew, before shrugging and taking the supplies home. At least he didn't have to pay for the items. Ash set the cocoa on the table, looking at it like it was poison before going to bed, however, he constantly shifted in his bed with a heavy feeling in his heart as to the decision he made. His muscles were rigid with the tension of holding himself together, and his heart ached like someone was stabbing his chest with a knife. Ash decided to talk with Brock, one of his best friends. Brock did have 9 siblings to take care of when his parents left the gym to who knows where. For some reason, he felt that Brock may understand his situation somewhat. Turned out that Brock was awake, clearly preparing ingredients for breakfast. What are you doing up so late or early? Brock asked. I couldn't sleep, too many things in my mind, and I thought you may understand, Ash explained. Brock nodded and brewed some tea for Ash. Ash watched him very closely before turning away. He then poured a cup of tea for Ash. This may help, speak your mind, Ash. I'm not sure if I am really up to take care of Naruto, and I don't exactly want to dump him to my team. Also, I heard Hess back after abandoning us for so long, Ash whispered, clutching to his mug. You mean like how my parents returned after a long time away? Brock wondered, and he left me to care for 9 siblings. Kinda, Ash admitted, emptying the tea in one go, but I just have the urge to run him over with my rapier. I've never seen him for years, I don't know his objective of coming back. Brock refilled the tea without a single word from the champion. How ironic, Brock smiled. What do you mean? Ash was startled. You spent time looking for him, only to find no trace. Now you don't want to see him, but Hess apparently back and looking for you, Brock pointed out. Didn't realize that, Ash smiled. By the way Brock, can I ask you something? Sure, what is it? Brock wondered. How do you manage to raise a kid? Ash asked. Brock wondered that too, after all, he was barely a preteen himself when his parents left. That meant he had to take care of their meals, their clothing, the chores and whatnot. It wasn't easy, but he had to make do by ensuring a schedule and everything. After all, 9 younger siblings could be quite chaotic. Sometimes, Brock resented them for leaving him with the choices they made. Even when they came back, Brock silently watched them, waiting for the day they'd abandon them again. Taking care of the 9 siblings was troublesome, but Brock considered it rewarding in a sense. He never thought someone would face a similar situation, but here Ash was, losing his mother and facing the prospects of being a parent to an infant who was not even a year old. Well, Brock finally answered, mostly, I would put slightly more attention to the younger siblings. Whatever the older siblings can do independently, I let them. In your case, I would pay attention to things such as the milk and the clothing. I'd read the labels carefully, because the baby could be allergic to certain brands of formula or the material for onices. Ash nodded as he wrote it down on his notebook. Even though Ash was a champion, he had dreams of his future life. After all, he felt he had enough adventures to last a lifetime, so he thought he would settle down at a pretty place with his mother and maybe bring a nice girl to her without worrying about their safety or about the other side of society, for the matter. Maybe he'd even convince his brother to come back to them, however, that vision was now fantasy, it would never happen. Yet here he was, facing the prospect of carrying a baby that belonged to the Shinobis and unable to live a normal life after his father had found their living quarters in Pallet Town, completely turning his ideal life upside down. Then again, his life had become unpredictable, just like his battle style. Oh well. Honestly, it's just practice, Brock went on as he started cooking breakfast. Ash's eyes zeroed in on his movement, ensuring he got Brock's every step. Eventually, you'll find that instincts would kick in. By the way, how's your team? Ash did not know what to say. After all, the team was only formed under certain circumstances, and only the 5 of them and the respective regional champions that approached them knew why they were formed, because none of them knew each other prior to forming the team. Their teamwork was not the best, to say the least. Ash wished that he could talk to someone, anyone about this, however, even he was forced to keep his silence, lest the Hunter Association caught wind of this. It's fine, Ash lied through his teeth. Too bad you don't let me meet them, Brock mused. Not gonna happen, I don't want any bloodshed when you meet Paku, Ash retorted, or Akeno, for the matter. I didn't say anything. Brock protested as he cracked the eggs into the pan. You were thinking it, Ash shot back. I didn't know you can read minds, Brock commented, are you a psychic now? Well, I do have psychic powers, it's not mind reading, but I've known you for years, so I don't need mind reading to know what you're thinking. Ash did not bother to point out that Brock was like an open book. Whenever he saw a pretty lady, he was sure he would flirt with her. You can't deny that it'd make a good husband material, Brock joked. If you behave properly, that is, Ash replied dryly, and minus the flirting, he continued sipping his tea until Brock spoke again. Ever tried finding a mother to care for Naruto? Brock grinned. Ash almost spat out his tea as he coughed. He spluttered, Brock. I am too young to even think of this. Well, I believe you are old enough to date, though, Brock chuckled, considering you make jokes about my love life, I found it fitting to target yours too. Yeah, except I think after all that happened, I am not ready to find a partner, so to speak, Ash remarked, taking another gulp of tea. Fair point, although it'd be an interesting point to talk about, since you mentioned Cynthia just got married, Brock snickered. Don't remind me, Ash scowled, knowing just who she married. He slammed the mug on the counter, she knew where he was, and she didn't even say a word to me all this time. It's bullshit on how his life is probably turning out the way he planned it and has no regrets over anything. Maybe he was onto something, run away from home and wandering the earth and marrying a nice girl on the way, doesn't sound like a bad life, seemed happier than the rest of us, anyway, Ash muttered. Brock shook his head, as the eldest sibling, he could tell that Ash's unknown older brother was anything but happy. It was likely he wanted to come home, but something prevented him from doing so, which was why he was supposedly looking for Ash once Delia went missing. He wanted to ensure that he was still there, however, he said nothing to Ash, since he was already upset enough. You know, you could try and see a therapist if you need to, Ash, I know a good therapist. Brock started, and Ash said, oh, don't talk to me about those experts, we've been trying to find one for Paku, and she has been through 676 of them. Wow, what even happened? Brock was astonished. They can't resist the temptation that was her, Ash grimaced, you know, I don't need a doctor that would tell me everything was going to be okay, or to make me feel better about myself. I'm not trying to do that, alright, maybe I was, when you're down, talking to someone that can sort your feelings can help, not just friends, Brock informed him. I don't need that, I just want closure, as to what happened to my mum, Ash sighed. And you will, when the time is right, Ash, maybe by then, you'll be strong enough to accept that whatever happened was never your fault, Brock nodded. How optimistic, Ash commented. Well, when you have 9 siblings and you need some words to cheer them up, Brock shrugged, but you're usually the positive one, if I were to be honest. Although mentioning Cynthia might not have been the best idea, Ash added. You said it this time, not me, speaking of which, do you need more tea? I think it'll pass, Ash shook his head, I better wake Misty up for breakfast, she is not going to be happy that I was up the whole night, though. Yeah, that's a good idea, Brock nodded, I also hope this is a one-time thing, but it may be too much to ask for, considering your state of mind. He was expecting Ash to retort back at him, but the words never came. Ash remarked, I really should at least get someone to talk to, at least when I can't sleep, maybe my Pokemon or one of you. You know we'll be here when you need us, Ash, Brock smiled as he served up the dishes. Thanks, Brock, I'll go call Misty now, Ash sighed. Maybe it was the tea, or maybe it was the heart-to-heart, but Ash felt a little better about himself, perhaps he would be alright, he mused, that was until the mood was ruined with a message from one of his team members, Jude. Naruto's having diarrhea, Pakura's taking him to the doctor, we figured since he was fine after being left with her the whole day, we'd give the task to her. Figures, my team is just as blur as I am. Ash threw his hands up upon reading Naruto was showing some illness, that was until he learned just who his team left Naruto with. My team left Naruto with who? Ash yelled, his eyes wide as saucers. Sarutobi was tackling his paperwork, inwardly complaining about how it seemed to pile up. He wondered how Minato was able to empty his desk of it when he heard noises from outside the office. Sir, I'm sorry, but Hokage-sama is busy right now, he cannot be disturbed right now, a male voice said, which Sarutobi recognized as one of the Anbu members. The blaze is with that, he has some information that I need right now. A vaguely familiar voice replied. Sarutobi just knew it was one of the few hunters he managed to get in contact with. If it wasn't Olympia, then it was. I didn't expect him to show up here at all, Sarutobi commented, a little worried at the fury in the tone. Out of my way. The voice snarled as a crash was heard. Sarutobi sighed, praying that whoever was at the other side of the door didn't hurt the Anbu too much. The office's door slammed open, and the person with the same brown eyes as Ash burst in. He fixed his eyes on Sarutobi and narrowed his eyes. I am here for some answers, and I know you can give them, the young man went straight to the point. You're aware that hurting my Anbu and breaking into my office isn't exactly making a good impression on the hunters, right? Sarutobi asked calmly. Tell it to someone who cares, the young man folded his arms. I'm looking for this person, where can I find him? The young man asked, holding out a picture. The picture was a photo of Ash. Amic. Decade debacle. Philip walked over to the sofa and turned to the camera. Alright, since Ash is absent, he'll be explaining the mechanics of the decade debacle. As you all know by now, the hunter exams have been in place for centuries, however, ever since the fifth princess, Gertrude Blade came into rule, she put something called the decade debacle, which is why it doesn't line up with the current number of hunter exams. The military Princess Gertrude dictated that every 10 years, the hunter exam would be marked with an anniversary. It called for a glorified version of hunter exams that would make the hunter exams more interesting, but knowing her militaristic mindset, it's always something that was worse for the examinees to send a message, Philip explained, sighing, then again, to her. Seeing them kill each other was entertainment. So far, 7 decade debacles have been implemented. At the screen, the number 7 was painted in red appeared, with each of them having a certain theme. The theme itself isn't known until the day of the hunter exam. The first decade debacle had the theme, taking you with me, Philip went on, to remind examinees that sometimes, to achieve what you want in the end, you have to put your life on the line. Each contestant had a bomb injected into their blood. On the screen, an image of microscopic bombs was seen in a person's blood. Should they fail a phase and cannot move on, they can choose to take down someone with them, just so they don't pass. On the screen, someone was glowing white and grabbed another person, before exploding. Of course, if they choose that decision, both of them will die. You'd be surprised how many people choose this route. The second decade debacle was called equation, to remind the examinees that some sacrifices are needed to get the objective. Each of the phrases were said in such a way that you could either die to ensure others move on. On the screen, someone was trying to decide to give a single dose of medicine to someone else, or to himself, or sacrifice others so you can move on. The screen depicted someone throwing another person to their deaths into the ravine, so that the string they were balancing on would have less weight. Either way, someone would be gone, Philip went on. The third decade debacle was named Opposite Day as a reminder that examines should never take things at face value. You are supposed to do the opposite of what the instructions tell you to, Philip mumbled. For example, if the phrase requires you to find the exit of a labyrinth and bring keys as proof, a screen shows the instructions. You are actually supposed to exit the starting point without any keys at all. An image of a generic woman walking to the starting point without any keys was shown. Failure to follow the true instructions well, you would need to play a game to keep your life. The fourth decade debacle's theme was living emotional crutch. Well, to reiterate that relationships can potentially be broken during a war, they make someone that is the most precious to you go into the hunter exam with you, Philip explained, his tone somewhat flat. In the screen, a mother was being shoved into the arena of the first phase with her baby. If either of you dies, it's an automatic fail, Philip shrugged, as blood splattered the walls. He shook his head. If you don't have anyone close to you, will they just use one of your Pokemon, the one you had the longest? The fifth decade debacle was the 7 mysteries, to remind that during a war, you don't exactly get guidance. They don't tell you what you're supposed to do to pass or what constitutes as failure. You have to figure it out on your own based on the clues and environment it is set in, Philip mumbled, not to mention, instead of the usual 5 or 6 stages, this one has 7. The six-decade debacle had the theme, race against the clock, to remind examinees that time is of the essence when it comes to decision-making. It was a battle royale style. In the screen, everyone was shoved into a single area, battle gladiator style, where you start off by killing 4 people to survive within a time limit. Anyone without the required kills were executed, Philip explained. Then, it's 3, then 2, then 1, whoever remains at the end passes. This hunter exam had the record of the youngest participant, who was only 8. A silhouette of an 8-year-old was seen in this one, carrying a bloodied knife. Don't worry, I think he passed. The latest one, the 7th decade debacle, to remind the examinees that they will face unfavorable odds. It had the theme, there can only be one. Philip's tone was rather serene. I hate talking about this one, honestly, no one ever talks about it, because that year was the worst, because there could only be one survivor, the rest who failed any phase don't walk away alive, they get executed. Philip elaborated, for some reason, the records of this hunter exam got erased. I don't really know details about who was the lucky person that passed, all we know is that the person's name is BZZZT. The screen became wavy for a second, like a television not getting enough signals. Sorry, the camera just glitched, no idea why, Philip grimaced, we don't have the slightest clue as to what happened to BZZZT. Philip frowned at the glitch, but went on, as far as records show, BZZZT didn't become a hunter in the end, just disappeared right after the hunter exam. It was almost as if BZZZT didn't even exist in the first place, stupid camera. Philip muttered the last 2 words. Alright, that's all I have to explain. What did you say? You're asking why do they still participate if they know the year was going to have a twist? Philip blinked. Well, Princess Gertrude had this saying, high risk, high reward. There were rumors that in addition to the usual rewards, they offer you something you desperately want or need during the D. He added, of course, those who participated kept mum about their experiences, so we can't really confirm that, or they may have been bribed to keep their mouths shut, or did so out of fear. Philip then shrugged again, even I don't know much about it either. Someday, I might try and hack into the database to see the records of those who passed for some clues, but that would be at a later time. He put a finger to his lips, don't tell anyone about it. Thanks for watching.